Everyone knows about the big stars of the Republic and Imperial navies, the Star Destroyers. But while these ships are big and flashy, much of the real work is done out of the spotlight by ships like the Pelta, the Lancer, and the subject of today's video, the Arquitens. This humble cruiser could be considered a miniature Star Destroyer itself due to its familiar shape. Today we'll be breaking down the design, specifications, and history of this underrated vessel. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is everything there is to know about the Arquitens-class light cruiser. Design. The Kuat Drive Yard's Arquitens-class light cruiser was a medium-sized warship used by the Republic and the Empire. It had a diamond-shaped main hull with a narrow gap at the front and a docking tube on the left and right sides. At the rear, it had a wide bar holding its 3 engines, attached to the main hull with a triangular brace. Just aft of the middle of the ship was its T-shaped command tower containing the ship's bridge. The hull of the Arquitens were dotted with weapons, which Wikipedia states can be retracted for atmospheric flight, but in the Clone Wars episode listed as a source for this statement, the turbolasers are only missing for 1 shot. So I think that was just a production error and not an in-universe fact. Still, it would be a cool feature, so you can choose whether or not to accept it as true. The Republic Navy used the Arquitens as an all-purpose light warship, including use as an escort, a support ship, a picket ship, and a patrol ship. After the Clone Wars, the Empire retired most of the ships of the Republic Navy. One of the most prominent exceptions was the Arquitens. It was retooled into the Arquitens-class command cruiser, which came with numerous upgrades. The basic design remained the same, but the engine block gained additional armor around the center, the side cannons were replaced with escape pods, and a docking port was added between the prongs at the bow. This docking port was capable of carrying a small complement of starfighters or docking with a shuttle. The Arquitens was also given better communications and sensor equipment to serve its new purpose as a communications and command ship. It was also used for blockades, armed transport, electronic warfare, and reconnaissance. But the Empire wasn't satisfied with just the command cruiser, and later in the regime introduced the Class 546 program to further modernize the design. This increased the overall size of the ship while retaining the original shape, added 4 secondary sublight engines to the drive block, and installed a small hangar with port and starboard doors and a launch tube between the forward prongs. The weapons were also upgraded, and the ship received several aesthetic changes as well. Finally, this version was able to land on a planet's surface, though the other variants may have been able to do so as well. The Venator, Acclimator, Pelta, and Charger C-70 all could, so it would be strange if only one of the Republic's main ships could not. Specifications. As discussed, the Arquitens had several configurations, each with different stats. The original Arquitens-class light cruiser measured 230 meters long by 135 meters wide and 56 tall, though some were also said to be 325 meters long. It had a top atmospheric speed of 750 kilometers per hour and a Class II hyperdrive. It could carry one of 2 armament loadouts. The first included 4 twin light turbolaser turrets, 4 heavy quad laser cannons, and 4 ordnance launchers, which typically carried concussion missiles but could load any standard Republic munitions. The second, less common option had 4 twin light turbolaser turrets, 4 ordnance launchers, and a ventral quad laser cannon. It had a crew of 100 officers, enlisted crew, and pilots, and could carry an additional 100 passengers. It had a cargo capacity of 1,200 tons and carried 3 months of consumables. This version of the ship had a cost of 4 million credits. The Arquitens-class command cruiser was the same size as its predecessor, with improved speed, maneuverability, and power output, though still comparable to the original. Where it really began to differ was the armament. All ARC command cruisers were armed with 4 turret-mounted twin-light turbolaser batteries, 8 quad-laser batteries, 4 concussion missile launchers, and a medium tractor beam projector. It could also carry a complement of starfighters, either 3 standard-sized TIE line fighters or 2 bomber-sized TIEs. Supposedly, this version had a crew of 750, but frankly, I just don't believe that. It could also carry the previous version's 100 passengers and 3 months of consumables, and likely a similar amount of cargo as well. Its price, however, increased to 5 million credits. The Class 546 cruiser was a much bigger overhaul than the command cruiser. And I mean that literally. It measured 381 meters long by 163 wide and 66 tall. However, according to research done by Reddit user Scout the Trooper and model maker Mel's Miniatures, the Class 546 had an estimated actual length of 460 to 480 meters, based on evidence from the scenes that it was in. But at the same time, using other comparisons, it can also be estimated to a smaller size of 325 meters long, just like the alternate size of the original Arquitens. Personally, I'm just going to stick with the canon size for simplicity's sake, but you are, of course, more than welcome to believe in one of the other sizes. The post also references a chart someone else made that proved the original Arquitens and the command cruiser should actually be smaller, about 190 meters, but when I took a look at that link, the creator had updated the post to state that it was outdated and that they had used an incorrect measurement for comparison, so those ships' stated sizes were likely correct. Anyway, the Class 546 was armed with 4 quad turbolaser turrets this time, and probably the missile launchers as well. Its complement included 8 standard TIE fighters and 2 Imperial transports. Unfortunately, the rest of the stats are unknown. I would guess that it had the same Class 2 hyperdrive, and a slightly faster top speed of 800 to 900 kilometers per hour. It likely had a slightly larger crew, perhaps 150, though possibly the 750 that the command cruiser is claimed to have, and a similar passenger, cargo, and supply capacity. Given the price increase on the command cruiser, I would have to imagine the Class 546 cost an additional million as well, for a total of 6 million credits. History. The Arquitens was introduced early in the Clone Wars in the year 21 BBY. In one of the very first engagements in the ship's service history, an Arquitens named the Surrogator was used by Obi-Wan Kenobi as bait for General Grievous in the Battle of Seleucami, where it was destroyed. Several Arquitens were part of the fleet surrounding the cloning facilities on Kamino, and others were assigned to similar duties on Coruscant. An Arquitens, appropriately named the Hand of Justice, was also used in the mission to rescue enslaved Torgruta at Kadavo, where Admiral Barton Coburn ordered it to be flown under the suspended slave processing facility to provide them a safe place to jump down to. Unfortunately, it would not live up to its name forever, as it would continue operation after the rise of the Galactic Empire, which gave it a refit to the command cruiser variant. Speaking of which, sometime between 18 and 4 BBY, most of the remaining Arquitens light cruisers were recalled to Kuat drive yards and converted to command cruisers. Imperial Arquitens included the Centaur, Flenser, Marauder, Peacemaker, Chirac, Telstar, Thunder Wasp, and the Tumnor. The Peacemaker was assigned to the planet Arieli and was sabotaged by the locals to prevent it from leaving the atmosphere. While awaiting equipment to make repairs, the captain ordered the ship's gunners to bombard civilian buildings such as schools, libraries, and hospitals as punishment in one of the Empire's countless small-scale atrocities. The Thunder Wasp was another noteworthy Arquitens, as future Grand Admiral Thrawn served as its first officer with the rank of captain. Arquitens were used in numerous operations fighting early rebel cells, including blockades and patrols around Lothal, Ibar, Garel, and more. 2 Arquitens were assigned to escort a prototype interdictor cruiser, and were destroyed when rebels sabotaged its gravity well generator. Over time, newly built command cruisers began to replace refit light cruisers, and eventually these too would be replaced by the Class 546 cruiser. This was easily the least common Arquitens variant, as far as we can tell, it was introduced very close to the end of the Galactic Civil War. But what 546s lacked in quantity, they made up for in infamy, as a Class 546 cruiser was the flagship of one of the more prominent Imperial Remnant leaders, Moff Gideon. He used it to create and deploy his platoon of Dark Troopers and plan his plot to become the new Darth Vader? Create an army of force-wielding armored clones of himself? Whatever it was he was doing. Fortunately, he angered exactly the wrong person by kidnapping Din Djarin's adopted son Grogu, and in return, Din and several allies captured Gideon and the ship in the process of saving the child. Eventually, it made its way into the command of Axe Woves, who used it for mercenary work and bounty hunting, before becoming the flagship of the Mandalorian Resistance. After Gideon escaped to his secret base on Mandalore, the Mandalorian fleet traveled there as well, where the 546 was critically damaged in the most underwhelming space battle ever fought. Woves decided to wipe the planet clean of the Empire once and for all, setting it on a collision course with Gideon's base before bailing out and watching it destroy the facility with Gideon inside. Currently, this was the last known use of a Class 546 or any Arquitens variant, but I'm sure there are some out there in the hands of pirates and planetary defense fleets somewhere in the galaxy. And that's everything there is to know about the Arquitens-class light cruiser. Let me know in the comments what you think of this ship and which version you like the best. I think the command cruiser is my favorite in terms of appearance, but the practical effects used to shoot the Class 546 are too impressive to ignore. They built an enormous and insanely detailed 5-foot-long filming miniature that they shot with an old-school motion control technique. They also did this with the Razor Crest and the Onyx Cinder, and I'm sure there were others too. But that's what makes the Class 546 my favorite version of the ship. But anyway, make sure you like and share the video, and subscribe so you don't miss one. Then I will see you next week. RFC, out.